All right, we're going to talk about communication today. Most people that I've spoken to about this, that do the mesh thing, it really is one of hopefully multiple things we're looking at. And most people looking at Meshtastic or Mesh Core are looking at it for an alternate or backup communication. So this really leads to a bigger conversation about our communications and making plans and being prepared. So we want to look at this. We really want to have some kind of PACE plan. Maybe we don't have all four, but we want to get as close as we can to having at least 2 to 3 methods of communication that are completely separate. Now, separate as in, if you have a cell phone that's Verizon and AT&T, that's not really primary and alternate. I mean, it kind of is, because sometimes one service goes down and the other, but if you have a major disruption, probably all cell phones are going to be problematic or overloaded. So really, primary and alternate would be like a cell phone and, say, a mesh node. A cell phone, mesh node, and maybe a radio. Maybe we include something like a Garmin Spot or the Starlink internet through the satellite. And then emergency, well, that could be maybe using methods of communication you're not necessarily licensed for but still have the hardware for, or literally relaying person to person. But we want to have at least multiple 2 to 3 methods of communication that are separate, and so that basically there would be no way that all of them would go down at once. So, like I said, primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. So how does mesh and all this stuff plug in there? Well, I think mesh is probably an alternate or contingency at best. We're not seeing in most, even some of the other bigger areas might have better, more reliable communication, but I don't think it's probably going to be a primary for most of us. At least not the way that the network is now. Maybe in the future, but I still think it's going to be an alternate or a contingency at best. So what other options do we have here? Well, we got lots of options. You got ham radio, you got satellite, you got CB, MERS, FRS, GMRS. Lots of options. And like I said, I'm not going to go nerd out crazy with this and talk about Smith charts and standing wave ratios and all that kind of stuff. But I am going to talk about the more easier stuff to get into, the license-free stuff, where you don't have to take a test, you don't have to go on the FCC's website and get a license. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but mainly the license-free stuff that you can get involved in, which is going to be emphasizing MERS, FRS, and CB radio. We're going to talk about those. All right, first off, we know about mesh. You've been here, you're watching this video, you probably know more about it than I do. But we're talking about low wattage in the 900 megahertz spectrum. A quarter wave antenna is about 3 inches. Some of those higher gain antennas could be, 15, 20 inches, but relatively short antennas, and they still to be effective. You don't have to have a long antenna. This is going to be important when we get down to other services like CB, where to really get the reach beyond the neighborhood, you're going to have a long antenna to work properly because of the frequencies they operate on. So that's important consideration. So if you look, we're going to look at propagation projections on this little app I use to kind of compare the different services. As you can see here, mesh, it covers its little area there in West Fork pretty well, reaches up into Fayetteville, and in theory could go further with some hops. And by the way, these are all going to be taken from a 40-foot water tower that we have infrastructure on right now in West Fork for comparison purposes. Next, we look at FRS. Now, FRS is very compromised. They use very low wattage, half to 2 watts at best, cheap radios, and you can't have high. Basically, you're limited in the antennas too. They're typically very crappy antennas. Your wave ratio, as far as your wavelength for antennas, pretty manageable, about 6 inches for a quarter wave antenna. So you don't have to have a super long antenna to work on that, since it's in the UHF 400 megahertz kind of spectrum, kind of the top middle of the band there. So, looking at this, in theory, if you were standing on top of that water tower, you could probably talk across all of West Fork into Greenland and maybe parts of South Fayetteville. I don't know how effective it's really going to be, because once again, these are very cheap, very compromised radios, not the best. I really wouldn't want to attend on these, or wouldn't want to depend on these. It's great if you want to talk in your kids across the yard, or you're out in the hunting lease and you're talking a quarter mile across the valley or across somewhere to somebody. Okay, maybe. I still think there's a lot better options than that, but I digress. Let's move on. We're going to talk about a better option at the end, by the way. So next, we move on to MERS. Highly underutilized. This is a small VHF VHF band that has 5 channels ranging from about 151, 154 megahertz. To get a quarter wave antenna on the VHF side, you're looking at about 18 inches. So once again, still pretty manageable, but very underutilized, and it works really, really well. You're still limited about 2 watts. And some radios you're going to use will probably push about 5 watts if we're honest, but you're supposed to keep it under 2 watts. But even with that, pushing 2 watts from that tower, and I think I have a little glitch here where it's cutting out the very top of the map there, I'm sorry, but you can still see the difference comparing the other maps. If you're standing up on the water tower with one of these little handhelds pushing a couple watts on MERS, you're likely to be able to talk across almost the entire county. It's going to work very, very well. Highly underutilized. Like I said, doesn't cost anything other than buying a $20 to $40 radio, and you can talk good distances on MERS, and no license is required. Next, CB. CB is kind of a difficult topic. One, it's 4 watts, a little bit more power, but the antennas typically have to be much longer. The shortest ones I've seen that work effectively are 3 to 4 feet. Realistically, if you really want to talk very far, you're going to need a half or full wave antenna. We're talking about, I think it's 18 feet long. A quarter wave is 8.5 feet. That's a big limiting factor with CBs is the antennas, frankly, to get resonant antennas. And it's one of those things where you might not be able to talk from West Fork to Springdale very well, but if the band conditions are right, it'll skip and you'll be talking to Maine, New York, and Argentina. It's really crazy about that because it does do some atmospheric skipping, which also creates a whole lot of noise. CB is a dumpster fire. It's really hard to use. But in theory, you could, with legal wattage, push out and if you're on that top of that water tower with your, 8-foot antenna, you could potentially talk to Tahlequah if somebody else was in the same position with a little tower. So it does have the capabilities. But the also issue is, this is pure conditions. CB is so noisy and so saturated, it's very difficult to talk on sometimes and pick people out of the noise. So a really, really noisy service. So as we look across these, what options do we have? Well, we have all these options. A lot of people go back to CB, older timer. That's fine. But lots of times they end up pushing a whole lot more than 4 watts, what they're supposed to be. And according to the FCC, you're going to stay under 4 watts for these services. So let me finish with this. My recommendation, please, you can really go out there and get some inexpensive radios that will do MERS, FRS frequencies. Yes, I know they're going to be bending the FCC rules just a little bit as far as wattage, but they're still not going to be more than about 5 watts. So it's pretty close. The biggest issue is make sure you're using them properly and you're not causing interference on things that you shouldn't be on. But moving on, what I'd probably recommend is this. GMRS. Honestly, guys, it's probably the most, other than MERS being underutilized, it's probably one of the most underutilized services. Yes, you have to get a license. It's $35. We're going to post a video in the resources of a guy that does a short video, sponsored by Midland, I'm sure, on how to get a license. It's kind of a pain going through their website. I get it, but it's $35. The license is good for 10 years. No test. Covers your entire family. And the coolest thing is now you can crank it up to 50 watts. You can also use repeaters. And why does that make a difference? I'll give you an example right here. We'll look real quick. Or mygmrs.com. You'll notice here, there's repeaters in the area. One in particular I want to draw your attention to, Winslow. This repeater is very high altitude in Winslow and covers, especially to the north, very, very well. You can realistically talk on this all across Fayetteville. And you could literally have a couple $20 radios and your GMRS stuff, and you could be standing outside on a handheld talking to somebody from Elkins to Springdale to West Fork to Prairie Grove to Greenland pretty easily. Very, very good coverage. Repeaters change everything. And it really opens up your ability to communicate across a large region. The Lincoln one also does well in the west part of our county. West Fork, not quite as good a coverage, especially to the south, but it does reach pretty good to the north. Other areas, like you see over here in Branson, has a couple repeaters. Evidently have a pretty big one there. And throughout the area, you'll see different repeaters. So GMRS opens up repeaters and higher wattage, and it really does change the game for sure on this stuff. So, what do you need to get into this game? Well, it's really inexpensive too. The good thing about your options here is you literally can find a plethora of inexpensive radios. The one I've been playing with the most recently and handing out to family members and recommending is Little Baofeng UV5R Mini. It's literally hand sized, it pushes 5 watts, and it is compatible with all these services. Now, yes, I know it's not legal to transmit on FRS. I got it. Here, I got news for you. FRS and GMRS, they're the same frequencies, same channels. Just you're supposed to push 2 watts or 5 watts or 50, depending on your license. I got it. At the end of the day, it's pushing 5 watts. I hope I'm not upsetting the FCC, but as long as you're not causing interference, I don't think anybody's going to be able to tell. And it will do MERS as well. And if you decide to get those licenses, like your ham license, it'll do the ham frequencies too. So a lot of potential there, and you can get a pair of them for $40. You can also upgrade the antennas, which does make them much more effective, which is much better than those FRS radios that have those fixed, really crappy antennas. So now, yes, if you really want to add more to the PACE plan, getting that ham radio license, I know there's tests and all that, it's not that bad. That really levels you up even more. Ham repeaters that run on VHF can literally, I can talk from here to Fort Smith to up into Missouri. It's amazing how much capabilities ham radio really has. Not to mention getting into high frequency stuff where you're bouncing your signal off the ionosphere or the moon and all that kind of stuff. It's crazy amount of stuff. And on the other side, more technology is that satellite stuff. You can get Garmin products, and now with Starlink, you can do their $5 a month dormant plan, where you basically have a minimal amount of service and you can turn it on in an instant if you need it as a backup. So I don't know if we'll get down into that kind of stuff. I do want to point this stuff out, that if we want to be prepared in our area and be able to communicate, I think most people will be very well served to dabble at least in one of those other little radio services, MERS, GMRS, as well as mesh, and I think you'll find it's going to really help you fill out that PACE plan to have alternate communications, which is, I think, the reason we're all here. So, hey, thank you very much for your time and attention. If you like this stuff, let me know. You want to know more stuff, let me know. I'm not an expert on this. I'm learning as I go. But these videos force me to learn as well and share that with you. Please check out our website, nwamesh.org. And, hey, join our list, and we'll keep putting out information like this and keep growing that mesh and increasing those options of alternate communication. So, all right, take care, guys. Bye-bye. All right, test 1, 2, 3.